Well, let's have some good news. That's our chapter. Good news. Paradise is coming on earth. Most people think of that as paradise, the water and the palms and all that. Basically, what does the Bible say? God has long promised that paradise will get restored. The book of Isaiah is filled with a lot of allusions you've heard about, no more poisonous snakes, no more carnivorous animals. Everything's going to flourish. Basically, Revelation 20, and look what it says. I saw an angel coming down from heaven, verse 1 of chapter 20, having a key to the bottomless pit and a great chain. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, the devil and Satan. He bound him for 1,000 years. Verse 2. I have that circled in my Bible. Verse 3. He cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal on him so that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. But after those things, he'll be released for a little while. And you can read the rest. And it says 1,000 years in verse 4, 1,000 years in verse 5, 1,000 years in verse 6, and for the sixth time, 1,000 years in verse 7. Now let me ask you, how long is the millennium? How long does it last? 1,000 years. Half of Christendom doesn't believe there's a millennium. How many times does it say 1,000 years? 6 times. But they say 1,000 years doesn't mean 1,000 years. So I'm not going to argue about millenarianism. What does earthly paradise mean? Well, if you read the 40-plus chapters that describe the millennium, this is what they say. There's going to be health. People are going to be healthy. In fact, the average person will live 1,000 years during the millennium. That means if you come into the millennium and don't rebel against God, you live to the end. There's no death. There is death, but only for rebels. It says in Isaiah that God will kill people that are rebelling. But if they don't, and they kind of figure the lay of the land, there's longevity of life, balmy weather, the absence of danger, abundant food, clean air, clean water, no phosphate and PFOAs and all that, flourishing garden-like plants. When we look at what the world was like before the flood, a normal, what we would call a garden fern, you ever seen a fern? They're about this high. They have really pretty fronds. One fern was the size of that wall before the flood, when the whole earth was like paradise, which is what the millennium is like, paradise restored. There's going to be beautiful and docile animals. Animals were so docile, it says that Adam named them all. They all came up, and it's orderly. I mean, do you remember how they walked in the ark? Pairs. That's not a nursery fairy tale story. When God is running things, it's completely different than it is when we're running things. God is running the millennium. The animals are docile. They're also not carnivorous. Sharks won't eat people, neither will lions or tigers or anything else, and snakes are not poisonous, and neither are spiders. You understand? And all that it says in the minor prophets and major prophets. There's global peace and universal prosperity. And that's what God offers for 1,000 years. Wow. Where does he offer that? Well, it's in the promise to David in 2 Samuel 7 and 23 under oath in Psalm 89. Predicted in the Psalms and Prophets, and you can read all that, and it's in your notes. Mary was promised that. Micah and Isaiah and Daniel are quoted. It's reaffirmed to the apostles. Do you remember what the last thing the apostles asked Jesus before he ascended? Do you remember the last thing they said? When is the kingdom coming? They were asking, when does the millennium start? That's how important it was to them, to the apostles, this 1,000-year period. It's when Israel is at the head of all the nations. It's when Jesus is ruling the earth. And it's when, well, all these things happen. There are physical changes to creation. Zechariah describes them. Isaiah describes them. The curse is not removed, but it's lifted. It's kind of in abeyance. The curse as far as thistles and, sweat and toil and labor and everything being hard to do. Creation is in the process. Remember, Paul said it's groaning in Romans chapter 8. All creation, including the universe, the beyond the earth universe, everything is under the laws of entropy and the second law of all the laws of thermodynamics the universe is under. and it's going to be a time in the millennium when earth is full of the Lord and the knowledge of the Lord, and people talk about the Lord. Yet it's not yet eternity and heaven and the way it's going to be forever. There is still death for the rebels and sin because people are not sinless. They're limited, Isaiah tells us. Each person has their own land, so it's still going to be, in fact, it's curious. One of the ways God operates in the millennium is that everybody does have their own plot of land. And it says in Isaiah that if you won't go to Jerusalem for the festivals every year, the feasts that are going to be held in Jerusalem during the millennium, three of them each year, if you won't come, God won't rain on your property. How do you like that? It'll rain all the way around your field. And the first year that happens, they go, whoa, I'm going to the festival. God's keeping track. He does attendance, But that's how closely the Lord follows people's lives. Everything is very fruitful.